All right, here's a quick reference guide for a timeline in how the game will change during your gameplay, and how there's also some notable milestones for your experience. So starting off, the base model of the game is the campaign. You'll see that here you've got just the button to go into the actual fights themselves, and you've got your stages and so on. Something to note is that at the beginning you only have access to battles at 1 time speed. So when you go to fight, it will look like this. It's very slow. And therefore it kind of slows you down in the very, very beginning. Once you get to chapter 4, that will unlock 2 times speed, which is a little bit faster. Lets you get stuff done quicker because there's probably more tasks at that point. And then finally, once you get up to chapter 19, that's when you get to your 4 times speed, which you can see here. This is so helpful for being able to just clear matches, or if you know you can't win and you're trying something out, you can at least see how the battle's going to go and then get your data afterwards much quicker. You're going to lose much quicker, but that's a good thing. Ultimately, it means that inevitably you will solve the problem much faster. So that's at chapter 19. So going back, chapter 9 is when you unlock the Elder Tree. Elder Tree is here in the library. The Elder Tree is essentially like an all-around buff system. You get additional materials in the game to spend here. The 2 different modes of increasing your Elder Tree are, one, just getting heroes ascended. When you get heroes ascended, you get points. You can use the points to add levels, and then essentially that gives you these stats here at the bottom. The other one is through this essence, the Twisted Essence. This allows you to level up specific tiers, and you can click on each tier and see all the heroes that it's going to affect and what their bonuses are here at the bottom. As you progress in each tier, it unlocks special additional abilities that are sometimes noticeable in combat, sometimes not. Some are better than others. I leave that up to you to find the guide. But that all unlocks at chapter 9. Then above here, we've got chapter 12. That's when you unlock the Field of Stars. Field of Stars is a selection of essentially increases to just all the rewards in the game, but they're all different depending on which ones you unlock. This one is going to increase the amount of gold that you get for doing base quantity daily. So that's and each of them unlock at different times. One of the most notable ones to talk about is actually here. This is the Desired Hero Tavern pulls. This unlocks once you get your first ascended hero. Once you get one of them, then you get the ability to access 1 time per month to use the feature for the desired heroes. That's here in the Notable Tavern. It's a whole separate feature here. And essentially what it allows you to do is that instead of getting the bonus where you can pay 10% less to summon 10, you just pay the full amount, 3,000 per. But if during that pull you do get an elite plus hero, it will guaranteed be the character that you required, or that you assigned. So you can see here you have a selection from any of the 4 factions, and then if you pull any elite hero card, it will be that one. I don't believe you can pull 2 at one time. I think it's just the 1. I could be wrong about that. So that's here at 12 when you get the Field of Stars. Chapter 13 is when you unlock, arguably, in my opinion, one of the most time-saving features ever, or at least in my brain it feels that way, and that's the bounty board autofills. So the bounty board, normally you have to click on each individual requirement, so it'll say, oh, you've got 3 here, 2 of them have to be Lightborn, 1 of them has to be a Mauler, and one of them has to be a legendary. And it is so monotonous and time consuming to click on each one, and it's like I don't even really know what the purpose of it being not or having this feature locked at the beginning. I guess it's just to make you appreciate it once it does become unlocked, or maybe later on in the game you feel that you've progressed, like there's like a sense of accomplishment. I've played long enough, I don't have to deal with this crap. So it's just so great because you can just click on the bottom and it just says autofill. It literally fills all of them up for all the quests. It takes 1 second, whereas before it took forever. So that sucked. But also with Chapter 13, you unlock the Twisted Realm and the Cursed Realm. These are both features here in your guild. Here in the Hellscape, you can see Twisted Realm, Cursed Realm. Those unlock, like I said, at 13. The Cursed Realm has an interesting feature here at the bottom. You can see there's multiple stages. Each of these unlocks based on the number of heroes that you have. So as you have more heroes, so you can see acquire 20 ascended heroes to unlock this team, 25, and then essentially the max level and the max rewards are once you get to 30 ascended heroes. And then that way you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams for fighting this in this realm. And then the rewards, like I said, they all are they're based on how much damage you can do, and the amount of damage that you can do is based on how many heroes you have unlocked, and so on. So again, it's just another feature that you can use. Both these features are Cursed Realm, Twisted Realm. Those are both features that you can use to gain additional resources, and it's a different mode of the game, so you'd be required to sometimes build different heroes specifically just for this game mode. That's all at Chapter 13. Chapter 16 is when you unlock Stargazing and the Temple of Time. So the Stargazing allows you to select both Celestials and Hypogean characters. That's your main feature for getting these characters, because otherwise it's just random pulls. And this allows you to build out specific characters at the cost of Stargazing cards or diamonds. The Temple of Time is where you get Ascended heroes. It's a similar feature, but you can only select Ascended characters. And both of these unlock at 16. The only other way to get the Time Gazer cards is from the shop. You can get one of these per day. It's 500 diamonds. Once you do unlock that, it's absolutely essential that you buy those every single day, because the Awakened characters are some of the most broken characters in the whole game, especially once you have them built. That's all at Chapter 16. Chapter 19 is when you unlock 4 times speed. We already talked about that. Chapter 20, the next one. Oh, looks like my game crashed. Chapter 20 is when the stages per chapter go from 40 to 60. So all of a sudden, chapters are longer. Chapter 25, once you get to Chapter 25 or you beat Chapter 24, the last stage of Chapter 24, is when you unlock the Swap Scroll. There is only, as far as I know, there's only one of these in the game. And this is super helpful if you've, for whatever reason up until this point, you've built a character badly, or you picked the wrong character and you want to switch something out, or you got too much food in one faction and you needed an essential character from a different faction that you just can't pull those cards. That's really, really helpful. That's at Chapter 25. This is when we get into some really heavy stuff. I feel like this is when the game kind of goes overdrive a little bit. Chapter 31 is the first chapter. So once you beat 30, Chapter 31-4, because every 4 stages there are bosses, that's the first stage that you have to have 2 teams to beat the boss. Chapter 33, so 2 chapters later, is when you switch up to 3 teams to fight each boss. 35 is 4 teams, and finally 36 is 5 teams. So by Chapter 36, you are expected and required in the campaign to have 5 fully formed teams to be able to fight the bosses. In the beginning, when they first introduced these boosts in the number of teams that you need, they do give you kind of a buffer. So the first stage in that boss will be as hard as you've been used to up until that point, combat rating wise. Whereas you'll see that the last, the most newly added boss battle of that stage will be less. So here we can see in chapter 33, I'm on a boss here, and the combat requirement here, or combat rating is, looks like 29,777. The second one is 30k, so it's about the same. But then you'll see this last one is much lower. So it's only 13,826. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a grace period to get that next team up and running. And hopefully you'll figure something out by the next time, because then that one gets harder and then the next one gets easier when it adds an additional boss fight. So that's 31, 33, 35, and 36 to swap from just the one team all the way up to 5 teams. So again, remember, these are only for every 4 battles. So all the ones in between are just the one single time, all the one single teams. So that's really helpful. Then switching from campaign, you also have the tower. So King's Tower unlocks at chapter 2. So it's like in the middle of 2. I think it's like 212. Once you finish 212, it unlocks the King's Tower. You have access to play or to use any characters in the King's Tower. There's no requirements on what you can and can't use. The only requirement is that sometimes you'll get into a stage and you'll try to hit the battle and it'll say your team isn't strong enough, you have to have a specific combat rating. So that's something to think about. Past that, though, there's no stipulant on which types of factions of hero characters you can use in the King's Tower. Once you get to chapter 15, then it unlocks the 4 faction towers. So the Wilder, the Graveborn, the Maulers, and the Lightbearers. Those towers will now unlock at chapter 15, and they follow a similar structure to the King's Tower, floor by floor. You get rewards. You complete a single battle, but within those floors, you can only use members of that faction. So by chapter 15, you're expected to have at least characters. You don't have to have them necessarily built. They're not really that difficult at the beginning. You can kind of just throw in 5 characters. I've even seen some characters, if you have a particularly broken character, just solo it at the beginning. But eventually it kind of ramps up into normal difficulty, and that's when you have to have characters you have to have teams that are formed with some sort of synergy, a tank, a support, some DPS, etc. Those are all going to be for those faction towers. And then again, that all starts at chapter 15. Once you complete all the way up to chapter 30, again, once you unlock chapter 30, I should say, that's when you unlock the next 2 towers, which are the Celestials and the Hypogeans. And again, the same rules apply. You can only use members of that faction. So these ones are very, very difficult to build teams for, because it's just not very often that you pull those, or if you are pulling them, you're pulling specific characters from the stargazing cards. So again, something to think about. By chapter 30, you're required to at least have 5 characters in each of those 2 different towers for Hypogeans and for Celestials. The other thing to note is that they unlock specifically per day of the week. So you can see here there's different markings on the ones that aren't unlocked. You've got the Wild Retreat, it says Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. So that means that for the day that it is, you only have certain ones unlocked. There is a day, Sunday, you'll see, all of them will unlock. So that's essentially, you have a couple different chances per week to clear all of them. And then on Sunday, they all have the ability to be opened. Each day that they're opened, you can max progress 20 floors. So you get 20 floors, you have to stop. It literally won't let you even try to do the next stage. You can see that content, but you can't do it until it unlocks the next day. And in a situation like where you've got 2 days that are back to back, like this Wilder, Saturday and Sunday, if you complete them Saturday and then it rolls over to the next day, you can do another 20. So technically you could do 40 in that day, if that makes sense. So that's again something to think about. I would absolutely suggest kind of formulating like a plan towards which ones you're going to be doing per each week for something I'm going to be talking about now, which is the resonating crystal. The resonating crystal is something that essentially it's what makes it so that you don't have to grind so much. you are in the very beginning of the game, you are expected to have 5 main characters that you focus on, essentially a team. Those team members are essentially, I would say, they're supposed to be your primary focus, and they're the characters that you use to complete the campaign and the original King's Tower when it's unlocked. And anybody else that you put in the resonating crystal spots that you get that are extra, they will mimic whoever is the lowest of those 5 characters. So if you have a level 20, a level 20, a level 20, a level 20, and a level 18, all your characters will be level 18 except for those 4. And as soon as they're all the same level, then they'll all be a level 20. So that's all well and good. It's great. And in the very beginning of the game, you kind of have some options to say, oh, I don't really want to take that character. You can pay some resources, some diamonds, to drop all their experience and then add them to someone else in case you messed up. But then once you hit level 240 with all 5 characters, that is when the crystal itself breaks. You no longer have the option to remove experience from a character to give it to somebody else. And as a result of that, your experience is across the board. So you're no longer leveling up one character at a time. You're leveling up the whole crystal, and that levels up all your characters that are in the crystal. So that's, again, something to think about. And the reason why I mentioned that is because if you are, let's go back to the faction towers. Each of those factions requires characters that are leveled and geared and so on. And so what that means is that if you know that your specific day is coming up for, let's say, the Mauler faction, and that's going to be tomorrow, if you've already done the faction of today and you need to be able to set that up for the next day, you need to go into your resonating crystals, select the characters that you know you're not going to be needing, click on them and take them out of the rotation, because it takes a full 24 hours for that spot to reset, and you want to have those spots open for your faction tower clears. Again, try to do your 20, get that maxed out, and then take them out and then put your new faction in the next day so that you can have the whole day to progress in that next tower. So that, again, something to think about. A big, in my opinion, justification and reason for why it's worth it to care about everything kind of all at the same time is that the game is designed in a cheeky way where certain elements of the game support what level you are and what your experience and what you have to do in the game. And so, for instance, when you unlock the faction towers, that's kind of in that moment when you really need food. You really need lots and lots of fodder characters to be able to grow your teams. And if you are progressing within one tower, there's a couple of stages that are really important for their rewards. These stages are level 20, level 60, level 80, 120, and 140. And the reason why I mention those is because the rewards for those are faction fodder guaranteed cards. So you complete stage 20 in the Wilder Tower, and you get 6 guaranteed blue fodder Wilder characters. Super great, right? By the time you get to 140, which is the last level that does it, unfortunately, I wish it kept going, you get 24. That's a huge amount of food to be able to ascend other characters. And that can be really, really helpful for when you're trying to get all of your characters up to 240 and break that crystal so you can kind of move to the next portion of the game. So again, that's really, really important. Past 140 though, or actually, sorry, within that usefulness, there's also, once you get to stage 125 and above, just about every 10 floors you will get guaranteed 5 Stargazer cards, and that's all of the towers. That's all 6 of your faction towers. Once all 6 of those faction towers are unlocked and you complete every single one of those stages in 125, 135, and so on, that's a great way to get Stargazer cards, and that allows you to kind of build out those key heroes that everyone talks about. At the moment, I would say like the base priority is always going to be Lucrezia. She's just like super broken. She has a whole team by herself, and that can really, really help you getting her to Ascended that's I would say minimum level that you want to get her, if not 1 star, before you go on to other characters. And then other characters past that, all in whoever you're specifically trying to stargaze for at that time period. But that's a super big benefit to doing that. The other benefit to the faction towers, and I would say that this is the faction towers have a benefit, whereas the King's Tower is really more just about you get diamonds. That's like the reward for pretty much every single floor. You can see here you've got diamonds, money, just essentially materials, right? Every single floor you get those. But what's different about the faction towers is that the faction towers almost always give you either money, the consumables for your weapons, for your gear. That's not a good one to look at. Let's see. Or the Stargazer cards, like I said. So that's really where you get a lot of the base elements to just make your account better in general. So it's really, really worth it to do all of those things at the same time. And you kind of want to, I mean, no, it's a lot. There's a lot to do, but there will be kind of a wall that you hit. Once that wall is hit, it's really going to be dependent on what characters you have built, what characters you have ascended, what your teams are looking like, how like, I don't want to be kind of like lawyery or whatever, but at the same time, I feel like it fits. How diverse is your portfolio? Because that's really how well you're going to do in each of these. And I would say an interesting thing is that notoriously the Mauler faction is one of the hardest faction towers to get through of the original 4, just because there's a very small number of characters within the Mauler clan that are super helpful. And another thing is that one of the like, I would say, the faction traits is life leech, and life leech is a great idea in theory. However, it's problematic when it comes to the player utilizing it, because if a character has life leech and then they go and attack somebody that's shielded, or the attacks miss, you don't get any of the benefit of those healing bonuses. So it's really spotty whether or not it works or well or not. And I feel like that's one of supposed to be the major strength of the faction. So when you're going into that tower, there's lots of characters that shield and lots of characters that dodge your attacks, or characters that just go straight up invulnerable. And any of those attacks are not going to get life leech. So just be prepared. The Mauler one is hard. The rest of them, you have got dedicated teams. I'll probably do a video on each of them, at least as far as like starting characters and maybe good ones to play. You can also just look those up too. Other YouTubers have great videos on them already. But that being said, that I feel like is probably where we're going to end it today. There's a good amount of information here that I just kind of ramble through. So again, look up this information. Everything that I'm saying, I just researched, and I'm just putting it out here for a quick reference. So if you ever have any questions, go to the AFK websites, go to the YouTubers, type in your specific thing. You can see what characters are used in each of the different game modes. But hopefully that will give you it'll essentially get you prepared, so you're not blindsided. Like all of a sudden, oh my god, I need to have a Wilder team. What? Oh my god, I need to have 5 teams for this, whatever. So really, really important to be prepared before you hit that roadblock. Because if you're prepared for it, then you're not surprised. You're not caught off guard. And the game is designed to be progressively more labor intensive, because you want to have more stuff to do. At certain points, you get to these essentially milestones where there's just roadblocks kind of everywhere, and you need to have additional stuff to happen, and you also need to be able to get additional resources to be able to progress through those things if that's what is holding you back. So hopefully this helps you out. I hope you guys have a great day. Cheers.